Hey, Mark, how's it going, man?
Howdy.
Uh, Sorry about not realizing you were in the class. I didn't hear anything.
Okay,
I
no problem.
was just reading an article. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil.
Brazil. Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah,
Lots of students from Brazil. What part?
yeah, yeah. I live in the south of Brazil, Porto Alegre.
Rio Grande do Sul.
Yes,
Nice.
Porto
Nice.
Alegre.
That's awesome, man. I know a little bit about that part of Brazil. Lots of nice universities, I think. I think some of the best
Yeah,
universities. Um,
yeah, definitely. Have you ever been here?
I've never been to Brazil, no, unfortunately, but it's not a it's not a bad idea. I think
Yeah,
I really want to visit. I think maybe if I get time in a few years, if I for the Olympics or maybe for the World Cup, I can come.
yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Grigori, how's it going?
Hello, hello guys. Very well. It's going
Good.
nice. We celebrate Yom Kippur today, and we have habits. In this day, our children play uh, in our town. No cars in the streets, so children go to the streets and playing. It's very
Bec-
nice habit.
Yeah, is this the only day of the year that they can do this?
Yes, no cars in the streets, only ambulance or police,
Hmm.
not other. So it's good for children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. Did you have a good celebration with your family?
Uh, It's not celebration, it's trauer. It's opposite of celebration. It's they afraid of God.
Uh-huh.
Go to pray and that's all. Not eating, not drinking.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, absolutely. I meant to say that did you have a was it a did you have a good Yom Kippur, I guess? Was it um I guess I can't really say good either, right? Because it's supposed to be a day of, reflection, repentance. But no, I think it was normal, right? It was a good Yom Kippur from what you're saying.
I eating and drinking. I'm not keep uh, not keep
Fast.
not keep tradition.
Uh-huh.
I'm not I'm not religious man.
Oh, that's fine. But yeah, so if you did eat and drink, then that means that you did not fast, right?
Ah,
Because
yes, I'm not fast.
fasting, yeah, fasting is when you don't eat or drink. So
Fast.
fasting, no food, no water. So I was fasting, for example, or I was sometimes maybe the doctor will tell you before you come to the surgery, you must fast for 1 day. So no food, no water.
Hmm.
That way, it's your body is at a different. That way, your body is ready. Because if you have food in your stomach, maybe they can't do surgery. If you recently drank water, they probably can't do surgery. So yeah, we're gonna wait a couple more minutes, guys. I know it's a little bit early now. Have you guys met before, Mark and Gregory? Have you guys met?
Well, I think so. I'm not sure. Anyway, nice to meet you,
Nice to meet you
Gregory.
too. I know Mark from Brazil. I know Mark a lot of participate on classes. I see him.
Yeah, probably we have met a lot of students.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are more regular than others.
Mm-hmm. Have you? I think this is the first time you're in my class, Mark.
Yeah, their first time.
Nice. Welcome, welcome. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
sure, sure. So yeah, just to introduce myself, Mark, probably the other students that will join, will already know me, but my name is Farhan. I live in the U.S. In Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a smaller, relatively rural state
Yeah.
in the north part of the country. So the Midwest, we call it the central, north central part of the country.
Okay.
And we have a lot of cows here, a lot of cheese, a lot of milk, a lot of
Wow.
dairy. Yeah, we probably
Sounds
have
healthy.
yeah, we probably have more cows than people, honestly, in this state.
Wow.
Yeah, so very, very calm place. About 2 hours, 2.5 hours from Chicago.
Okay.
So if you know where Chicago is, it's 2.5 hours north of here.
Yeah,
So
cool.
yeah, it's nice. There are one of my friends is actually Brazilian. Her husband or her fiance is from New Zealand, and
Wow.
she is from Brazil. She was born in Brazil, came to the U.S. when she was, I think, 3 years old, but she speaks Portuguese, and it's, you know, the other.
Wow.
I tell everybody from Brazil, so I'll tell you also, Mark. My introduction to your country was through movies, so like
Yeah.
Tropa de
City of,
Elite
City
2,
of God.
yeah, City of God, right? So all of these movies, Bus 174, I think was another one, something like that. They're all about the favelas and the crime and
Yeah.
stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, such great movies, like
Yeah.
action-packed, jam-packed movies, like very, very
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. Cool. So you understand Portuguese or not?
A little bit, very little. I mean,
Yeah.
I speak
By the
Spanish.
way,
I,
okay.
I speak Spanish, but Portuguese, I mean, very, very basic.
Okay. By the way, I'm a teacher. I teach Portuguese in Brazil.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You can
What you
teach me
teach,
some
Mark?
Portuguese.
Yeah. Of course I
Mark,
can.
do you teach Portuguese
Yeah, I do.
in the school?
Yeah. High school.
High school?
Yeah. By the way, I'm teaching a teacher from Colimbo. She's coming to Brazil next March, and she's trying her Portuguese. She's been having a hard time, definitely, with our nasal sounds. That is not very common for you guys in America, but that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah, Portuguese, the pronunciation is very difficult, Mark,
Yeah, it is.
for a lot of people. Spanish is not like that. I think for people who don't speak Portuguese, I think if you speak Spanish, it's not too bad. But still, Spanish is easier than.
Yeah, but I prefer my students do not speak Spanish because it's too similar to Portuguese. And so
Uh-huh.
when you try in Portuguese sounds, when your brain doesn't get that sound, you go back to your Spanish background. It's a hard work for me to don't do that. It sounds like a Spanish.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that. If I was in your class, I think I would have the same problem.
yeah.
Yeah. Wilson, how's it going, my friend?
Hey Farhan, fine, thank you. How about you?
Good, good, good. Did you have a good day today? Anything interesting?
No, just it is Friday and that's cool.
Absolutely. God bless Fridays.
Yeah.
Best day of the week. All right, guys. So we'll get started actually. It's about 11 minutes past the hour. So today's class, we are going to be focusing on the passive voice actually, right? So when we talk about the passive voice in English, before we begin the discussion, we should kind of talk about what is the difference between passive voice and active voice, right? So normally when we talk in English, we use the active voice. And the active voice is where the subject of the sentence is also the person that is doing the action, right? Or the thing that is doing the action. So, for example, in an active voice setting, you would say, you know, every morning my mother makes breakfast, right? So the subject is the mother, and she is also the thing that is doing the action. She is making breakfast, right? So before we talk about active versus passive, we have to understand the subject and the object. Okay? So the subject is the person, place, or thing, the noun, that is doing the action. And the object is receiving the action, right? So in the case of my mother makes dinner, or my mother makes breakfast, what is the subject of that sentence, Wilson?
The breakfast.
The subject, right? What is doing the action?
Okay, it is your mom.
Yeah, so my mother makes breakfast, so that means the subject is my mother, right? Gregory, what's the object of that sentence?
Sorry, I would not concentrate.
No worries. So the subject is the person, place, thing that is doing the action. The object is what is receiving the action. It's not doing anything. It's just receiving the action in a sentence, right? So as an example, I said my mother makes breakfast, right? And Wilson correctly said that mother is the subject, or my mother is the subject. So what's the object of that sentence?
Breakfast.
Yeah, fantastic, right? So the breakfast is being made. It's not doing anything. The mother is actively doing the action, in this case, making the breakfast, right? So the mother is the subject and breakfast is the object, right? And that is very important to understand. Subject does the action, the object receives the action. So in an active voice, right, this is the setting that we have in the active voice, right? And the person doing the action, the subject, is at the beginning of the sentence, let's say, and the object is at the end of the sentence. Very easy to understand, right? Give me another example of the active voice. Let's go with Mark. Give me an example of an active voice sentence.
Okay. I teach Portuguese every day.
Fantastic. What is the subject of that sentence, Mark?
I.
And what is the object of that sentence?
Portuguese.
Fantastic, fantastic, right? So this is the active voice, right? Mark is talking about himself. I teach Portuguese, right? So what happens in passive voice? In passive voice, the object is the subject of the sentence, okay? And it's a little difficult to understand because I just said at the beginning, the subject does the action, the object receives the action, right? So now, in this case, we have the object is doing the action, okay? The object is doing the action, so the object is technically now the subject of the sentence, right? We will have to use examples to make this a little bit clear. But if you think of an active sentence, the best way to think of the passive version, in my mind, is to flip the subject and the object order, okay?
Yeah.
So, for example, my mother makes breakfast. You can say...
Breakfast is made by my mother.
Fantastic. Breakfast is made by my mother, right? And if you don't want to say by my mother, you can just say breakfast is made.
Yeah.
Or breakfast was made, right? So the breakfast, which used to be the object, is now the subject of the sentence, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the difference in passive and active voice is. And what's interesting is passive voice is not recommended in many situations. For example, when I was a child and I used to write papers, sometimes, you know, in like second or third grade, I wrote, you know, my mother eats, you know, my mother loves to eat, you know, chocolate, whatever, candy with me. And so instead of writing that, I would say the candy is eaten, or the candy is whatever, right? Passive voice is not recommended in many situations. It's used in poetry, it's used in songs, it's used in a lot of different kinds of writing, but not in normal speech, which is why it's difficult to understand a little bit, right? So how could we change the sentence This is the sentence that I'll give you guys in active voice. I'll start with Gregory, actually. So Gregory, let's say this is the sentence that I'm giving you in active voice. I want you to make it in passive voice, okay? Let's see. So this active voice sentence is, the lady cleaned her house.
The house was cleaned by a lady.
Fantastic. The house was cleaned by the lady. So in the first example, the lady cleaned the house. The house was the object. In passive voice, that house, which was the object, is now the subject. The house was cleaned by the lady. Right? Fantastic. So I think you guys, I think we are getting to that point where we understand this. Do we have any questions about the creation of the active voice versus the creation of the passive voice?
No.
But you know, I have to switch tenses, and then if the active sentence is in the present, I have to put it in the past.
You don't necessarily have to. No, 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 not at all, actually. So in this example, I guess I was doing that just out of habit. But if you, for example, say my mother makes breakfast, breakfast is made by my mother.
Okay.
You can keep it present tense.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. So the verb doesn't have any doesn't need to be in a different tense. It can be in the same tense. So this is the difference between active and passive tense, right? Before we go on, actually, let me say hi to our newcomer. Hey, Soso, how's it going?
Hi guys,
Soso, where are you from?
I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Fantastic. I was born in Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Yeah,
Which city?
I was born in Najran,
Ah.
in the south. Yeah. Lots of Saudis on Colingo. Lots of Brazilians and lots of Saudis.
Yeah. Your Arabic is very good.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there are so many. Like, I was.
How many years?
Very-
How long have you been living there in the U.S.?
Oh, me? So I was born in Saudi Arabia and I came to the U.S. when I was 3.
Yeah.
So I'm 24 now. So 21 years.
Yeah. You know, you have a very clear speech.
Yeah, because I grew up here. You know, I think that's the main reason. Because my parents, for example, you know, they learned English just like me. You know, they went through the university system in Bangladesh. They're from Bangladesh. My parents are from Bangladesh. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I live in America. I'm all confused. But they also you know, but they have an accent when they speak because they didn't grow up here, I guess.
Yeah.
You know. Absolutely. So nice to meet you. Welcome to class. We were just talking about the passive versus the active voice. And if we, for example, are talking about the passive voice, actually, first tell me, so do you know what the active voice is? I'm going to put you on the spot because you came late.
I'm not the only one who's late.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking. So,
Okay.
what is the active voice? Do you have any idea about that?
I think it's very straight. Subject, verb, and object. It's very simple.
Yeah, give me an example.
Okay. I attended English classes in Colingo.
Fantastic. I attended English classes on Colingo, right? So now, what is the subject of that sentence? I attended English classes on Colingo.
I.
Fantastic. What is the object of the sentence?
English classes.
Fantastic, right? So what is passive voice? How is passive voice different from active voice? If you don't know, I can tell you because this is the lesson, so don't worry. Any idea?
No.
Okay, so in active voice, we had the subject was performing the action, I, right? And the object was English classes. Now, in passive voice, English classes, which is the object, becomes the subject. So how would you say the same thing, except now English classes is the subject of your sentence? So you would say, I know this is difficult, so you would say, for example, English classes The English class is attended by me, right? And it sounds so weird because no one says that, right? That's why passive voice is very difficult initially because we don't use it in conversation. In conversation, active voice is almost always the best option, right? So the big idea here, and also Emmy, welcome to class. You have a fellow Saudi in Soso, and Jorge. How's it going, Jorge?
Oh, teacher, I'm really good. How about you?
Good, good, good. Thank you. Where are you from, Jorge?
I'm another Brazilian.
Nice,
Just
nice.
another Brazilian.
Tons of Brazilians. Tons of Brazilians. Fantastic. Okay, so what I did was I was just talking about passive versus active voice. So we're going to be looking at this a little bit more. If you guys have questions, especially Emmy, Jorge, and Soso, please ask questions as I go through the lesson because I don't want you guys to be confused by anything like that, right? But generally, just because now you guys are all here, the active voice is the following. Is thing doing the action plus the verb plus the thing receiving the action. In other words, plus the verb plus the object. Subject plus the verb plus the object. That's active voice. Passive voice, the object is the subject. And the rest of the sentence uses a verb after that, right? Okay, so you guys all got it. I think I might be boring folks right now. So now let us talk about what are times that we use passive voice, right? So Wilson actually gave a great example here. If somebody is writing a user guide, somebody is writing directions, right? Or somebody is writing, for example, certain kinds of literature, you would use passive voice, right? So, for example, literature, many kinds of books, many kinds of information are written in the passive voice. So, but there are also other examples. The first example is, for example, when we are talking about something in which the person who did the action is unknown. So, for example, scientists, right? If they are talking about something maybe that they found, right? Or mostly you see maybe archaeologists, actually. Archaeologists could say, these paintings were done in the 4th century, right? They go to a cave and they find these paintings, or they find a very historic piece of metal, and they say, this spoon was made in the 3rd century, right? Or this spoon was made 300 years ago. We have no idea who made it, right? And that's one example of passive voice, right? This spoon was made, because we don't know the subject. So the object becomes a subject, right? Another example of when we use passive voice is when we don't really care who did the action, okay? So let's say we say something like, in Brazil, we have 2 Brazilians in the class now. You guys are making a lot of stadiums for the Olympics, right? So you can just say, a stadium will be finished by the time of the Olympics. Maybe this is in the newspaper or whatever. A stadium will be finished by the time of the World Cup, by the time of the Olympics. We don't care who's making it. Is it the government? Is it a group? No one cares. A stadium will be built. That's all we care about, right? So that's another example of passive voice. We don't know who the subject is in this example. And now this is where it gets interesting. This is where it's actually very interesting. In the news, especially governments, right? Many times governments, like politicians don't like to say that they are responsible for certain things, right? So they would say, for example, mistakes were made. The investigation, there were problems were encountered in the investigation, right? They're not going to say, I made mistakes. No, never, ever, ever, right? Mistakes were made. Problems were found. Not, I found problems. No way. But problems were found, right? So these are all examples of passive voice. And then we have a couple more. They give 7 examples in the lesson plan, so I'm trying to go through them. If there's a general truth to something, right? So, for example, scientific truths that we know, like the oceans are getting warmer, right? So you can say the oceans are warmer or are warming. The oceans are warming. The sea levels are rising, right? We're not saying who is causing the sea levels to rise. The sea levels are rising by God. No, no one cares, right? We're not saying the subject. We don't know who it is. Sea levels are rising. It's just scientific, right? And then another example is so before we saw two examples, actually three examples, where we don't care about the person who did the action, we don't know the person who did the action, or we don't want to say who did the action, right? In the case of the politicians, that last one is important. But for some instances, you can also use passive voice to give emphasis to someone who did an action, right? This is why everybody hates English, because there's no rules, right? You do this one day and you do this the next day, and it's both English, right? So if you want to emphasize that someone did something, you can also use the passive voice. So for example, penicillin was discovered by, I'm forgetting the name of the scientist. Was it, okay, no, actually no. Let's do it this way. Pasteurization was developed by Louis Pasteur, right? Louis Pasteur discovered pasteurization. So in a history book, they will never say pasteurization was invented. No, because a history book is all about the subject. They want to emphasize, you know, a radium was discovered by Marie Curie, right? So in history books, and a lot of these places, they want to give an emphasis to someone who did the action. So that's why they use a passive voice. And last but not least, the last example in which we use the passive voice is if we are talking generally about science, right? So this is related to the universal truth aspect that I said a little while ago. So the seas are warming, right? The oceans are rising, right? Those are all scientific things. If you are reading a scientific textbook, especially maybe a chemistry textbook, right, they're going to say, for example, gasoline is refined from crude oil, right? Water is composed of, you know, hydrogen and oxygen, right? These are just scientific truths. Nobody knows the subject. It's just the way it is, right? So there are 7 major examples of passive voice. The most important ones, I think, for general conversation that we should know is just the fact that the object becomes the subject. That's number one. That's the biggest thing to remember. And also that we use the passive voice when we want to avoid mentioning who did something. In the context of the news, in the context of conversation, that's what people use the most. You know, if you're in trouble, you're never going to say, I made a mistake. Oh, well, mistakes were made. Deadlines were missed. This morning I was with my boss, and my boss asked me, Farhan, why did you miss this deadline? Right? I didn't say, oh, because I was, you know, lazy. I said, you know, problems came up in my day. You know, I said something to that effect. I never took blame, right? I mean, I'm a natural politician, you know. So that's where we use passive voice, right? Mostly is for if we don't want to indicate that somebody did the action, and usually that person is ourselves, right? Any questions, guys, on passive voice? I know it's a lot to go over, especially Emmy and Soso. If you guys have any questions, please let me know right now. Soso, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
You're okay. Emmy, what about you? I haven't heard from you, actually. How's it going?
I'm still sleeping.
Oh,
Hard
yeah.
to understand it.
It's so early, right? 6:30 now.
Yes.
So
And
you
this
didn't...
hard grammar, Farhan. Why
It
you
is.
give this to us? Please,
يعني
choose the simple
I don't
rules.
know. I don't know, يعني. This is just the lesson, يعني. I mean, I didn't choose the lesson today. But no, it's this is something that is actually it's important in the context of knowing news media especially, right? So we do talk about a lot of articles, and the
Yes.
newspapers use this a lot. So passive voice is important for that, I guess. So yeah, if you, I mean, I know it's very early in Saudi, but if you guys do have questions, both of you guys, please do let me know because I want to make sure we understand the lesson. For the rest of you guys, let us, and also for Emmy and Soso, let us start the article. So no other questions? Mark, Gregory, Wilson, no questions?
No question. That's okay.
I'm
Already,
okay.
already, fantastic. So today's lesson, or today's article is actually very interesting. I love reading articles about, military acquisitions that the United States does because as a country, if people haven't noticed already, the United States likes to make war, okay? We like to sell weapons, we like to fight in wars, and we like to, I guess, make money from war, right? So
Yeah.
the article that we are reading is related to kind of the political, some of these political dealings that the United States does, and it's from the Christian Science Monitor, which I highly recommend to people. If you don't want the bogus, garbage CNN, NBC, ABC, BBC, all that, that garbage, newspapers like the Christian Science Monitor, Huffington Post, I use in a lot of my articles, they are much more people-centered, objective newspapers, objective publications compared to the major news networks. So what I'm going to do, if you guys could all open the link, I am also going to share the link on a screen share so that you guys can see it on my screen, and we will get started in just a second. Right. Let's see. So, can you guys see my screen here?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Everyone has the article open, or is also seeing my screen?
Yes.
I have open.
It is open.
Yes.
Good to go. Good to go. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So let's get started. Asia pivot. U.S. to sell attack helicopters to Indonesia in $500 million deal. Analysts say the deal would tighten military ties between Washington and Jakarta, but human rights activists are concerned about what the helicopters could be used for. U.S. Defense. Oh, this isn't even the article. Never mind. So this guy, this old guy, is a U.S. Defense Secretary. This guy right here is the Indonesian President, Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. Right. So those are these two guys. The United States announced on Monday that it will sell 8 Apache attack helicopters to ally Indonesia for $500 million plus maintenance, radar, and training as a part of its pivot towards Asia, a move many analysts see as an attempt to counter an increasingly assertive China. U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel announced the deal during a meeting with Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono in Jakarta, saying the helicopters were an example of the U.S.'s commitment to helping Indonesia build its military capability. Though human rights groups criticized the sale for ignoring allegations of abuse by military forces against separatists in Papua and East Timor, analysts say they have little to worry about. Johannes Suleiman, a lecturer at the Indonesian National Defense University, says the Apache deal, which had been under discussion for some time, was part of a confidence-building strategy for U.S.-Indonesian ties. They look at Malaysia and Singapore, and Indonesia's military is like 20 years behind, Mr. Suleiman says, noting that Indonesia has been particularly wary about the U.S.'s expanded military presence in the Asia-Pacific. The East Timor and Indonesia Action Network issued a statement following the announcements that called the helicopters offensive weapons often used in counterinsurgency campaigns. The U.S. slapped restrictions on military aid and training to Indonesia in 1999 in response to allegations that the military was committing gross human rights abuses in East Timor, which was fighting to secede from Indonesia. Indonesia's long-running dictator, Suharto, had been forced to step down amid mass civil unrest just 2 years earlier, and for years military ties between Washington and Jakarta were strained. In the early 2000s, Washington stepped up assistance for counterterrorism training after several terrorist attacks against Western targets took place in the country. Then, in November 2005, the U.S. lifted restrictions on military hardware sales. Okay, none of this rest of this stuff matters, okay, because it's the same old stuff. And so I wanted to ask you guys, right? So looking at this article, to me it's actually very interesting because, you know, I think they're making a big deal out of something that is relatively normal in the course of international relations, right? The U.S. makes a lot of money selling a lot of hardware. We make a lot of money, you know, fighting wars and starting wars all over the world. But why in this particular case did they talk about human rights being an issue in the U.S. selling these helicopters? Did you guys understand that part of the article?
You can tell us conceptual of this article. I understand, but I particularly don't understand.
No problems, no. That's great, Gregory. No, I can definitely go over the conceptual reason why, right? But before I do that, maybe somebody did understand what was happening, right? So why is the debate all of a sudden about human rights? What is wrong with the human rights issue here? It might be difficult to tell from the article, but I'm going to let you guys see if you can understand. Wilson, Mark, Emmy, So, any of you guys?
I'm reading again.
You're reading it again? Okay. No, that's very honest. I know limited time. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Maybe because the allegations of let me see.
Yeah, go back to the article, guys. Feel free. I mean, if there's parts in the article. Yeah, absolutely.
Farhan, for understanding that you have to know political situation in this area, but if not, we don't understand.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Greg. That's a great example. That's a great way to start. So let me paint a small picture for you guys, right? So Indonesia is the world's largest island country. Okay, like it's made up of islands. It's not like Australia, which is a massive island, but Indonesia is made up of more islands than any other country, right? Hundreds of them.
And very big population.
Yeah, very big population, right? World's largest Muslim country in terms of population, and also stretches from essentially from the west. It stretches from Malaysia all the way to very far east. If you look at a map of Indonesia, it goes as far east as Australia. You know, I mean, Australia is south of Indonesia, but it goes very far east, right? And immediately to its east is a country called Papua New Guinea. Okay, Papua New Guinea, and those populations. So there are many populations in Indonesia that are very far away from Jakarta, very far away from the center of government, right? Because there are so many islands, right? That to go from one part of Indonesia to another part, you have to fly. It's impossible to drive. It's difficult to take a boat, right? So the country is connected, but it's not a homogeneous country, right? Not everybody in Indonesia is Muslim. Not everybody in Indonesia speaks Indonesian as their first language. So one of the states in Indonesia used to be called East Timor, and it was a small island in the eastern part of the country. And in 2010, I believe, or 2009, East Timor became an independent country. They are the newest country in the world, East Timor, right? And they're a part of this island called Timor. They're the eastern part of that island. West Timor is still part of Indonesia, if I'm not mistaken. But the people who live on that island, the Timorese people, different language, different culture, different religion, everything different from the majority Indonesian population, right? So over the course of the 1990s, right, so Emmy here has shared this with us, though human rights groups criticized the sale for ignoring allegations of abuse by military forces against separatists in Papua and East Timor, analysts say they have very little to worry about, right? So some people are saying these helicopters are not going to be used against the Timorese population, against this small population. But because the Indonesian military has a history of doing human rights abuses, other people are worried that maybe they're going to use these these helicopters to target the minority population, right? Who knows? I mean, East Timor became independent, right? Indonesia lost that war, you know? Who knows? Maybe 5 years from now, another island wants to say, we want to become independent. And how will the Indonesian military react to that, right?
Yeah.
We don't know. So, Mark, what do you think? Why do you think the sale of helicopters now is such a big deal?
Yeah, because as you told us, there might be. I mean, I think it's interesting because the U.S. is not only selling the helicopters, but also they are training the guys how to use or something.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And the radar comes free. It's buy one get one free. You know, like you go.
I was wondering why, because I think my English is not good enough to get the article. I have to read it twice so that I can understand it all.
Absolutely,
But,
man, that's great.
But I was wondering why, the Americans are acting like good friends, because as you told us before, definitely Americans like war, likes to be in war, likes to start a war.
It's big money, man, big money.
Yeah, but not that money, how much? I think it's, okay, $500 million. Yeah, a lot of money. Right. Definitely a lot of money.
That's $500 million.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, why sell you something? I would not sell you a car and not teach you how to drive it. Come on, Mark. I mean, I'm going to give you the training. I'm going to give you the radar. I'm going to show you how to use it. I'm going to show you how to kill with it. I'm going to show you how to fix it. Right? You got the whole package when you work with the U.S.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a problem, right? So human rights people are thinking like, 10 years ago, the United States did not have very good relations with Indonesia.
Yeah.
Now they are selling stuff, and they're saying Chuck Hagel goes there and goes. Chuck Hagel is the Secretary of Defense. He's the Minister of Defense essentially. He goes there and he says, "Now we are building confidence." Yeah. Okay.
All of a sudden, that happened. Yeah.
Right. Who knows? I mean, I think personally, at the beginning of the article, right, they say that one of the things they say is a move many analysts see as an attempt to counter an increasingly assertive China.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Emmy, what does that mean, that line? Let me copy this line here because I want to take this into consideration.
I think, well, in my opinion, I think it's a very step for future. That's United States. I think it want a peace country and a really small country make relationship with it, so it can have open eyes in the China and the area in east of the Asia.
Mm-hmm.
So it can have. I think it's just to not for East Timor. I think it's for the whole of there is Japan, North Korea is nearest also, and China. There is worries about relationship between United States and China now. So United States is, I think it's they are smart, so they choose a small country. It's not a very rich country, and 5 million, I think Indonesia will not pay that, so they will directly, so they will say it, okay, we will give you time, but instead of that, we want some, I think, information, or put some some areas for us to
Control, right?
watch. Yes, to watch what's happening the countries around you.
Yeah.
So I think that's That's what happened. It's not for just Popa or East Timor. No. And the Indonesian are so simple people. They are not. They don't want anything. They are so peaceful people, and they are so quiet people. I think this is what will have a problem for them for the next years, and all the time. It's not the United States' fault.
I mean, Indonesia as a country.
It will be not their fault.
Oh, of course. No, it's never America's fault. We never make mistakes. America never makes mistakes, right?
Yes.
So, but see, that's the problem, right? So many people, I mean, there are so many reasons why this deal could be significant, or maybe it's completely insignificant. Maybe there's no reason to worry about what is going on, right? But the truth remains, China is the next superpower. I mean, you know, so America, we don't like that. We'd like to be the only superpower, right? So, I mean, do you agree with what Emmy said, that maybe this is just a smaller situation? It's not really about the helicopters, but it's more about gaining control of Asia to slowly start biting at China.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Totally agree with that?
Yeah.
Why are we scared of China? Who cares? I mean, China's China. Why do we care? Mark, you're laughing. Why are you laughing? I mean, Mark is laughing. Why is Mark laughing?
Because I think China is definitely becoming, as you told us, super powerful nation, and the Americans definitely don't like that, you know. And maybe sometimes Indonesia become kind of informal military base or something to change information about Asia or something.
Absolutely.
That's very, you know, who knows what's going to happen in 10 years or even
absolutely
less.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. I mean, if you look at what happened in World War II, right? All of these islands, Japan conquered all of those islands. Japan was trying to attack Australia even.
Yeah.
So even after World War II, now 60 years later, America has small islands all across the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? Just military bases.
Yeah.
Like you know, planes land there and planes take off. Nobody lives there.
Yeah.
Right? Or just the military people live there. So I mean, I think it's significant because of all this extra stuff that might be happening with China, with all the other things that are happening, right? So I mean, Gregory, what do you think? Israel is also a very key ally of the United States, right? Always, you know, receiving a lot of U.S. weapons, or receiving a lot of U.S. training. What's your idea about this article?
Our country sell weapon too, and I know what is it meaning when spoken of money. All ethical reasons go to the side, and political reasons too. It's big profit, and it's important for who is selling, and no one can stop it when it's big profit.
Absolutely right. I mean, money is king, right? So just like you said, ethical reasons, political reasons, you know, in the case of many countries, have you guys heard the phrase, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend"?
Yes.
Right? What does that mean, Gregory? The enemy of my enemy is my friend. What does that mean?
Okay, I have with enemy of my enemy make part, I don't can understand it. I think it's clear. Nothing to understand.
Yeah, no, good point, right? But somebody's enemy, if you hate, let's say I hate Mark, okay? Mark is like, oh my God, this guy, like, I can't stand this guy, right? Let's say he's in my class, he knows all the answers, I hate this guy, Okay. Then I go to Wilson. I'm like, yo, Wilson, man, me and you are in the same position, man. Like this Mark guy, he's just answering all the questions, right? So Wilson hates Mark. I hate Mark. We can work together.
Yeah, you are two against me,
Exactly, right?
You're
So
getting stronger.
exactly. So Wilson, what's your take on this, man? I mean, you've been very quiet because I haven't let you talk. But what's the take on this? Like, does this really matter? The U.S. is selling stuff everywhere. Does it? Who cares?
By the way, don't hate me, please.
Oh, I'm not. I need you to come back to my class. It's all good, man. It's all good. Just an example. Yeah. So Wilson, what do you think?
Well, uh, I, I don't know too much about this kind of news.
Uh-huh.
It's in the other side of the world
True.
that that kind of things is happening. But China, I think is mm, is the next big player in the world, I think. So I don't know. Maybe this country uh, is uh, is scared or something like that. So that's the reason why they are acquiring these arms.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I think at the end of the day, right, any country, especially if you are finding yourself in a dangerous situation, right? I mean, Indonesia doesn't really have, like we heard from Emmy. Emmy said they're peaceful people, right? They're not going to start a war. I mean, they're living on a very island country, very tropical country. They have their own problems. Excuse me. Of course, every country has their own problems, but they're not in the part of the world where they're going to be starting wars, right? But increasingly now, looking at economic reasons, looking at political reasons, China is the big force in Asia. Malaysia, the other countries are big forces. Indonesia is just kind of like there, just, not really doing a lot. So maybe the U.S. is choosing Indonesia because of that reason, because this is a weaker country. Maybe let's make it stronger, right? Let's make it a friend of the U.S. That way,
Yeah.
right? So, Mark, I mean, what do you think? How is that going to benefit the
Yeah,
U.S.?
I was reading the article, some parts of the article, and they have internal problems there, with civil rights or something,
Mm-hmm.
and so definitely they are. It's a country that is weak at the present moment. I mean, and so that's why definitely I don't trust in the U.S. Trying to become friend, trying to do this because definitely, as I told, it's very easy for Americans turning Indonesia even weaker than it is right now because you have internal problems. You have a war. I mean, you can say it's a kind of civil war or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
Civil unrest, maybe civil unrest.
yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so I think that is dangerous, really. You have Americans as a friend at this very moment.
Yeah. Right now, nobody wants to be America's friend. And I think there's a good reason for that because nobody can trust us, right? One president loves this country. 5 years later, 6 years later, they're complete enemies, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, we call this in American political English, we call it flip flop. Somebody who flips their position, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's a flip flop. I mean, you don't have a standard friend. The only friend we have is England. Okay,
Yeah.
that's the only friend we can always count on. Canada and England. That's it. Two friends. The rest of the world hates us one day, loves us the next day, hates us one day, loves us the next day.
Yeah. Something like that.
It's really crazy, right? So I want you to share anything that you might want to say about the article. I wanted to just hear something from you.
Okay. I think that what they have said is true, that America wants something. They didn't do it from their own good. No, they want something. So China is their biggest rival.
China is your biggest rival, yeah. And are you guys, so let's say we're all from different parts of the world, right? How often do you guys buy something that is made in China? All of you guys. Let's go down the line. Let's go down the line. Yeah. Let's start with Mark.
Yeah, that is every single day. If you go to get something, definitely was made in China. They produce everything. They're getting stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
And they sell a lot. I tried something in a website trying to get something from China. The guys still calling me up even on Sundays to try to sell me that stuff, and I said, okay, I don't want it anymore. So I think they act like that, they just want to get power and selling things and stuff for everybody who want to buy it.
Exactly, right? I mean, even what about in the Middle East? So Gregory, how is the situation the same in Israel? Are there a lot of Chinese products?
Sorry, you asked me?
Yeah. Are there a lot of Chinese products in Israel?
Sure. Almost at all, only Chinese products.
Really?
We have our products a little, but electronic and I know and clothes, a lot of Chinese.
A lot of, I mean, for us, I think there was a study, some guy who was very interested in doing a social project, right? He declared that he would try to survive without buying anything from China.
Oh.
And I don't think he was successful.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
It's a very big challenge, right? Try to see. I mean, you cannot survive if you don't use Chinese products.
Look, honestly, we don't like Chinese products because we think it's not good quality.
It's cheap stuff, right?
Yes, but we don't have anything else. All import is Chinese. We most like from Europe, but it's not. You can buy.
Yeah, like German stuff, right? German stuff is great stuff.
Yes.
I don't. Yeah.
Especially cars. German cars is great stuff.
The best. Right? Yeah. Japanese cars are also nice, but German cars are very nice, right? And I mean, just the quality of the stuff is so high class, right? If you buy from other places, Chinese quality, not that good.
But you, for example, you want to buy Frigidaire, only Chinese.
So I mean, that's how powerful they've gotten, right? They've saturated the market. So this is what we say in English: if something becomes so popular, so full, they saturated something, right? So, for example, we talk about the weather. The clouds are saturated with moisture. They have a lot of water inside them, right? The Chinese have saturated the international market with their low-quality, cheap goods, right? Yeah. Everywhere. I mean, it's impossible, right? Like, Emmy, when was the last time you used something that was made in the USA?
Yes, it's almost my iPhone.
Yeah, right? Maybe your iPhone, even that is made in China.
Yes.
Right? It says assembled in California, but made in China.
Yes.
Ridiculous. It blows my mind.
Yes, I heard that a lot of also product China has labels. For example, yes, level 1. It's not they made it in China, and they do not put mark that it's made in China, and buy to European countries, and they said, okay, it's made in, for example, uh, any European country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was also there in United States, but before a few years, yes, they prevent that, and they did not sell anything from China again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, no country can survive if they stop doing business with China.
Yes.
Right? That's the reality of the situation. Like, I mean, you have to do
And
business with China.
not just the business. It's they have a lots of things here there about politics, about sports, about they want not just for economy and creating things and no, it's they have now lots of thoughts and they want to all the world mm, listen to them and listen to their thoughts about, for example, wars like what's happened in Syria. Yes, they have that's what's make United States have fears for them because they wanna be okay. They wanna stand up for a little up for all of that. They were just for economy. No, they want to be more controller, I think, for a lot of
They want
not
more
just
political
for
power.
yes, not just
Yeah.
for product things and creating things. No.
100% agree. I mean, China is doing a lot of stuff in Africa. You know, they are buying large oil fields, large companies. They're paying a lot of African countries, you know, a lot of money for their resources and things like that. And America is freaking out. I mean, we don't want that to happen. We should own the world. Why should China own the world?
Yes, and the media and the movies. A lots of things. I think they are more controller now.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, and you know they have the world's largest English learning population. So they are becoming a very, very globalized society. Maybe 20,
Yes.
30 years ago, not so much, but now in China, I think, Wilson, did you send me the video that was about China? The people in China learning English?
Yeah.
Yeah, what did you see in that video? Let's share that with the class. It was very interesting for me.
Yeah, the China is learning English a lot.
Hmm. And I think they said in the video that it was by law, Chinese children have to start learning English now from the 3rd grade, right? And
I think after a few years, China language will be the second major language in the whole world, and everyone will learn it also.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
they
think
have
so.
traditional.
I think so.
They're learning English, Yani. We don't need to learn Chinese.
You don't know.
I know, but Chinese is so hard. That's the only reason I don't want that to be the case. I'm not going to learn Chinese. It's too difficult, honestly.
Yeah, it's English is a good language. You know, it's easy to learn, and it's very related with other languages. You can translate your language into the English, and most of the time is almost, I don't know, 70% the same. So, well, I don't know the other languages, but at least with the Spanish, it's very easy to learn. Uh, to learning is just translating with Google Translator. You can have a good translation. So, but with Chinese, I don't think so.
I think the biggest problem with Chinese is the writing.
Yeah, but the guys want to learn English because they need to sell their products, so that's why they need the English. They have to be able to negotiate in English.
By the way, I recommend that to see the video that well, the link is in the chat box, and well, you can see good arguments for why the people is why in China is are learning English and the other countries also.
It's very fascinating stuff. I mean, you know, they are not a country that's just going to sit and watch the rest of the world, you know, do whatever they want to do. They want to control what a lot of the rest of the world is doing. They want to have some power in the rest of the world, right? And they're doing it. I mean, I could not tell you how many of the children that are studying in not children, but how many of the teenagers who are studying at U.S. universities. You know, so many of my classmates are students from China. They have a very, very, very educated population. They are very hardworking people, right?
Yeah.
And they are, you know, in English we say they are killing it. You know, like they're doing so well. They're killing it. They're killing the system.
Yeah.
Right? You go to any American university, and the second largest or the largest population of international students is going to be from China. I guarantee you. Right? The largest is usually Korean, and then the second largest is usually Chinese. Indian is up there, also Canada, but Canada doesn't matter. You know, so it's usually India, China, and South Korea. So many gifted students, thousands of those students are coming to the U.S. They're getting great degrees, very hardworking people, and they're going back. Many of them are going back to China. They're adding to that society, right? I mean, it's their country. So, I mean, the United States is looking at this, and, you know, in 20, 25 years, you have the best, some of the best students in the world now. 25 years from now will be the best professors in the world, the best doctors in the world, the best lawyers in the world, and they'll all be Chinese.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, not all of them, but I'm saying so many of them. You know, in terms of the percentage, so many of them will be Chinese. English educated, American educated, 100% fluent in English, Chinese, but Chinese. You know, so it's a very different thing. Indian people, so like my people, Bangladesh, India, we used to believe that because we were colonized by England, you know, we spoke English. Like everybody in India speaks English. So for the last 50 years, Indians said, oh, China, they're never going to catch up. India is powerful. India knows English. Oh, well, we were dreaming because China is catching up like crazy. China is now, I mean, India is here, China is already here, you know, in terms of progress, in terms of economic, you know, power. I don't know, guys. You guys need to talk. I'm tired now.
What they are looking now, I think it's not for the abstract or mental things. No, not mental. I think it's what's in what they can create in their hands. No, they are looking
physical.
for yes, physical things. No, it's now just for the creative things and something in their minds and education. A lot of things. Yes, like you said, they can create a lot of cell phones, but in my experience, the softwares, they are not so good in that. So now they are really study a lot of things about programming and something like that, because if they are not educational, yes, they can create cell phones and a lot of products, even if they are not educational, but if but the other things that need to be education, they are looking for that now. And I watched a TV show that they said that anyone have degree is so rich now in China. They give them a lot. Maybe he can create.
See you, Mark. Take care.
He can create. Bye, Marcus. He can create a lot of No, he can create his own company, and he's only 22, 25 years.
Hmm. That's my dream also, actually. I want to start something like that, like my own company. Maybe soon, but I don't know, right?
Yes, the country give them this chance if they are if they have degrees. Yes, and I saw in the TV shows a lot their company as are so large and so new. Even they're in the poor streets. Yes, I think that's my opinion.
It's crazy. I mean, I honestly think in terms of what we are seeing in the future, you know, what's interesting is we're talking about China. The United States is not so worried about the military force that China has, right? Because when we look at the technology that China has, it's not that advanced. Like, you know, if the United States is worried about a country in terms of military technology, they're probably still worried about Russia. You know, Russia still has a lot of military hardware, right? China's military hardware is a little bit older, it's not that reliable, it's not that technological, but Chinese hackers are crazy, right? So America is very worried about hackers, cyber warfare, right? Every few months there's an article in the New York Times or in the Wall Street Journal or something like that, and we are very worried that if China becomes an enemy, then they will use their computer knowledge to destroy American interests overseas,
Yes,
American banks and things like that. Yeah.
I saw a lot of computer programming in Chinese. It's not in English. Like a lot of yeah, in Spanish they use it. We here in Middle East we use it in English for programming languages. But I saw a lot of programming language in Chinese when you can Google it and see a lot of this. I was so um, surprised about that.
Yeah. They're good though. I mean, they want that, right? They want to be able to have that edge over the United States. They want that advantage over the United States, right? Because as a technological population, America is not very gifted in science and engineering. As a country, we lack in science and engineering, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. STEM. In English, we call it STEM. Well, not in English, but in the US, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? The United States does not have a great push for the STEM programs, right? People in the United States, children, if you ask them what do you want to be, they don't say I'm going to be an engineer, right? They say anything else. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a businessman. I'm going to be, you know, whatever. But in China, kids are going crazy to be engineers, mathematicians. India, tons of people are becoming engineers, you know, mathematicians, coders, computer software people, right? And that's where the difference is. I mean, America doesn't have that population. China has that population, educated population, increasingly global population. And it's going to be difficult, I think. I mean, for the United States 20 years from now, 30 years from now, especially if we look at cyber warfare, if we look at what's happening online, you know, behind the scenes, hackers and coders and all that kind of stuff, it's very difficult. Wilson, you said that they should be called crackers because they crack code. Was that your idea?
Yeah.
Do you know what crackers means in the English sense?
No.
So there's two forms of crackers, right? Crackers is something that you eat, for example, with your soup. It's like a cookie, like a cracker, like a biscuit, almost like a biscuit. And the second word is actually a little bit insulting. If you call somebody a cracker, it's actually an insult for somebody who is white.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually crackers, these biscuits, for example, in the United States, we eat crackers with soup, right? So you have soup, and maybe you break some crackers, you mix it with your soup, and it's a little bit more delicious. However, we should be careful if we call somebody a cracker, because it's an insult for somebody who is white.
Oh, I will take care of that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's perfectly fine. It's not considered extremely offensive, but it's still something that we should avoid saying in general if we are talking to a person. So I just wanted to, and it's completely fine. When I read it, I actually smiled because just reading that sentence was very funny. But yeah, it's true. Coders and hackers and these folks, they can do a lot of damage if they know where to look. You know, like have you guys heard about Snowden? This guy
Yeah.
Snowden. What
Yes.
did he do? Yeah.
He go to China first.
Yeah, he
Hong
went to Hong
Kong.
Kong. He went to Hong Kong, right? And where is he living now? What country gave him asylum?
Russia.
Exactly, Gregory's country. No, Gregory's from Ukraine. I'm sorry, Gregory's from Ukraine, but neighbor to Ukraine, right? Russia. Why do you think Russia gave Snowden asylum?
Maybe he has good information.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
And we take, I don't know if Wilson was with me in that class.
Uh-huh.
The teacher was discussing about the Snowden, and Chinese student create a movie for the just the period. I think it's few months or just days in where at when Snowden stay
See you,
in the Hong
Gregory.
Kong.
Oh, sorry, guys.
When
Go
the
ahead.
Snowden uh, um, when the Snowden stay in the Hong Kong, and he met these students, and the students go to their university and make a movie for I think their graduation project as a graduation project, and they product this movie, and yes, the teacher
They
watch
they
this
they produced this movie. I mean,
produce,
produced.
yes,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
produce this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and the teacher was give us the outline for this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about how China deal with that situation, and how China and how the Snowden go to this press, and this press to really have I think a contract with them so they can accept him, I think something like that. So look at what student, they are student in university, they still student, and they have an idea to produce that movie.
They're
It's
smart kids, right?
yes,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it goes back to the old idea of enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? I mean, China and Russia are much closer to each other than either country is to America,
yes,
right? So America has a lot of reasons to worry. I mean, President Obama is using the diplomatic approach for Syria. It seems like I was convinced that we were going to attack Syria, and nobody knows, we might still attack Syria, right? And it's a very dangerous thing because we don't the United States, American people in general, are not aware of foreign affairs. Okay? We don't research or study the world outside the United States. Many people are ignorant of those ideas, right? And as a result, like we said in other classes, the media can brainwash the population. Whatever the president says, oh, okay, that must be right. Now with the internet, things are getting a lot better, especially the university-educated population. They're much more educated, they're much more global, and that's why there's very little popular support for anything in Syria, right? Yeah, exactly, Wilson. How is this explosion of education? What facilitated this explosion of education?
Well, I think that internet is a big role in this trend because you can teach yourself, just knowing English and knowing what do you like to learn, and if you have a passion for that, you definitely you will be good at that, and then good good things will happen, you know. So if even if we talk about communities, if those people um, mm, they have a meeting or something like that, they could create a community, and create a creation of communities, and many crafts or careers or something like that is a key, I think.
It is, right? So it empowers you as an individual, right? It really empowers you. So that's it's a good verb to know, Wilson, because that's exactly that. Knowing English, having access to the internet empowers you as an individual. It gives you the tools that you need,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to go to anybody else. You don't have to go to a teacher. You don't have to go to a professor. You don't have to pay money. You just have to pay for your internet fee, whatever your internet fee is, monthly, weekly, whatever, right? But you have access to that, and you really have access to the world.
Yeah, that's
And
that's right.
so it's remarkable. Now I have hope in the American population because, like with Syria, people are no way, no Syria, no, 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 no. 10 years ago, Iraq, very few people were, saying Iraq does not have, whatever, and very few people were thinking that. Only the extremely knowledgeable, like the professors, the specialists, they were saying, listen, this is a bad idea. This is not good for America. America's foreign policy is flawed. We are making mistakes, right? And now everybody is suspicious of what the government does outside of the U.S., right? And with cases like Snowden, with cases like, all of these other scenarios, nobody trusts anybody anymore. I mean, in Brazil, one of my articles actually in a few weeks, I'll be talking about this. In Brazil, the Brazilian president herself wanted a public apology by Obama because they found out that the United States has been spying in Brazil, has been spying on phone conversations of Brazil, even listening to what the president of Brazil says on her phone, right?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
And it's a major crisis. I mean, she's a president of a country, and she has her own security. She has her own everything. But the United States was still able to penetrate her security and listen to what she was saying, right? And Brazil is a relatively friendly country. I mean, America and Brazil, they're not going to start a war. They're not going to fight. They're both, in the Western Hemisphere, they're both American countries. They're not going to start a war. But, I mean, even the few friends that America has, they're starting to lose those friends.
But I don't get why people think that we have privacy. If even in emails and those kind of stuff, it's you can, if you work, for example, if I have a website and I create the authentication of users, and then the users start to creating their profiles, passwords, I can see that information, you know, but my ethics and that doesn't permit to do that. So I don't know why the people think that we have privacy in technology. We don't have. We never have. We never had it. So it's an illusion, I think, for people that think that I have privacy, and I don't want nobody knows what I have in my inbox.
Well, I
So
100% agree. 100% agree. If you want to use technology, you have to have the responsibility. You have to know that you are entering a world that is sending an email is the most unsafe thing you can do. If you want
yeah,
to send something confidential, for example, if you want to send your, a picture of a scan of your passport, important bank numbers, important identification numbers, if you send that to yourself in an email, which I do all the time, right? And I know people can intercept it. People can do whatever they want with it. But I don't care because who's going to steal my money? I'm poor. you know?
yeah,
Stuff like that.
it's a matter that to have logic.
Yeah.
There many people is paranoid on this thing, and United States is spying on many countries. I don't think that's it's a big surprise. I think it has been done in many years in the past, and it will be continuing.
It'll be continuing. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I guess, it's that breach of trust. The biggest problem is this breach of trust, right? Because, for example, Brazilians aren't spying on the US, you know? I think that's where the problem is, that America is doing things that seem that they're unnecessary, right? Especially nowadays with Facebook and with the internet being such a global marketplace, a global social, uh, you know, network. People just feel like everybody should abide to ethics. Everybody should have ethics when they're dealing with online populations or telecommunications, data, information, emails, SMSs, messages, phone conversations, right? People feel there should be, if there's a rule for privacy, it should apply to everybody, right? It shouldn't apply to everybody except for the U.S.
Yeah,
And it's a problem because America makes the rules sometimes. They make the rules for international, you know, piracy, international communications, and then they're the ones who break the rules all the time. you know
yeah,
so even American people hate this idea. I mean, before they started spying on other countries, we are 100% sure they started spying on us.
Yes.
They started with us, they got really good, they practiced. Oh, okay, wow, this is really easy. Then they went to Brazil, then they went to, like, Saudi and Bolivia and every country.
Yes.
you know so nobody is happy. I mean, you talk to the average American, we are so skeptical of our government. Like, I think trust in government has never been this low. Maybe in the Bush era it was low as well, but also in that era, in the early part of his administration, computers were not that crazy. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, computers were not extremely popular. Like Facebook and all this stuff didn't exist. We didn't have the iPad, iPhone generation. But now, nothing is hidden, right? And it's a good thing, right? Nothing is private to the government, and nothing is withheld from us either, right? If you want to find something, you can get through firewalls, get through proxy websites, and get whatever you want.
yeah,
You can pirate, download movies, download music, download whatever. I mean, it's all illegal. So then, how can we say the government is the government is bad because they're doing illegal work when we, millions and millions and billions of people, are doing the same thing online, breaking privacy, right?
yeah.
I'll stop talking now. Emmy, did you want to say something?
No. But surely it's an open world now. Everything is open. Everything, and I think uh, at least the American people will say something else, not that the media give it to us, give them to show. And I think that was the problem for American citizens before 10 years. They do not, they don't want actually to see. other things outside United States. They all the time they say in America, in movies, wow, it's America, it's America. So we will do everything. This is much more democracies, I think.
Hmm.
But now, no, they can open their eyes and think again. But
Yeah.
they hate it. Yes.
Especially with what we see around the world. I mean, photojournalism on
Yes.
iPhones, right? I mean, these protests, like in Egypt, in every country, in Syria, the war in Syria, right? You can become a journalist with just your iPhone. I mean, you can take pictures, you can write articles, you can write blogs, right? And with YouTube, I mean, everything changed when video came into the picture, right? So I mean, it's very fascinating how. I mean, I wonder what will happen after YouTube. I mean, how much more can we do besides instant messaging, instant email, instant video, instant phone? I mean, what's next? You know, it's crazy. I have
Yeah,
no idea.
Yes.
yeah.
You guys sound tired. We have had this conversation for half an hour late, yeah. But anyway, guys, any questions about anything we talked about, or passive voice, or this article, or China, or the U.S., or Russia, Snowden?
Um,
We want articles about WikiLeaks and
About what?
WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks?
Yes.
Yeah, WikiLeaks. Okay.
Yes.
One day you'll come to class. There'll be no one here. The next day you'll come to class. Where is Farhad? Yeah, I don't see it.
I
Then
think all the Kanago will be not there.
2 days later, you'll see my face on CNN or something. You know.
And the all the website kanago.com, this page are not exist.
Exactly, right? It's that's what I'm saying. You know, I mean, no, I mean, I'm being ridiculous, but you know, it is something that is really. I mean, you look at young people, and we are not happy. I mean, there are so many things that we can improve. Some of the politicians are listening to us. Many of them are not. I mean, I think it's a generational issue for many of us. You know, I mean, the people that are ruling this country are the people who don't know how to use iPads and iPods or iPhones, right?
Yeah.
They're 50 years old, 50 plus, you know, whatever. And to them, they're still stuck in their traditional ways. And we are the new generation. We want to be global. We want to be interconnected. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see where it takes us. But Wilson, you wanted to know how I learned Spanish or why I learned Spanish?
Yeah, that's the question that I want to know.
Just for fun, man. I mean, when I was in high school, I had 3 friends who were all Mexican. I had Julio Cesar, and the first day I heard his name, I was very surprised because I said, "Hey, his name is Julius Caesar." Like the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar. Like, what a great name, you know, Julio Cesar. Right? And then I asked him,
Yeah.
"Is that your real name?" He said, "Yeah, it's my real name." Right? I thought he was joking because in all my classes, like whenever we had Spanish class, we were asked to choose our Spanish name. So mine was Francisco because Farhan and Francisco are similar. Some people call me Paco because, you know, for fun. And so I thought Julio Cesar's name was something different, and he just made that name. Anyway, Emmy, okay, see you later, Emmy. Take care.
Okay, I
And
see.
so I started in high school, and I just really fell in love with the language. I mean, it's such a beautiful, romantic language, and so much poetry. And there's a lot in Spanish that I really enjoyed. So I continued in high school. I took it for 2 years, and then I took the exam for like Spanish proficiency. I did well on that, and then I was able to take an extra class in college, in the university level, advanced. It was like Spanish literature for non-native speakers or something like that. Read a little bit of Don Quixote and De la Mancha and all the traditional Cervantes literature.
Yeah.
And one of my best friends, that this guy is a very, very close friend of mine. He is from Peru, and he's from Lima. So, like, for example, when Yulisa told me about Lima and everything like that, I was very excited. He was also, I mean, a very good friend. We always spoke in Spanish with each other. Even though he speaks perfect English, I wanted to practice my Spanish with him. And he's very passionate about Spanish. I mean, he actually decided to major in Spanish at the university level, and he is now studying international relations. He was in South America all of this summer, like from June to like last week. So he went from Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil. I think maybe he was in Chile for maybe like two and a
Yeah.
half weeks, And so just that adventure. I mean, I love languages that give me access to as many people as possible. And right now in the world, Spanish is like the #2 language in terms of native speakers, I think. Or maybe spoken speakers, like people who understand it. I think it's up there. Mandarin, Chinese is #1. I think Spanish is #2. English is #3, something like that.
Yeah, I see. Well, to practice Spanish in Peru, I don't think it's a good idea.
Really? What's their
Yeah,
Spanish? Is their Spanish different?
because yeah, they speak very fast. Even I speak Spanish. I am native. Sometimes I don't understand them because they talk very fast, and also people from Chile also they speak very fast. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, they like to use a lot of slang. So
I have the same experience. I mean, when my friend spoke to me initially, he had to slow down a little bit because I didn't understand him. I honestly didn't understand him. I mean, my Spanish background was from an academic background a little bit, and also in terms of conversation, a lot of Dominican, República Dominicana, los Dominicanos, they have a lot of, there's a huge population of them in New York, a lot of puertorriqueños también. Y
yeah,
entonces no fue súper difícil para mí al principio, pero después cuando estaba hablando con los peruanos y los chilenos, por
yeah.
ejemplo, fue muy difícil. Like I did not understand what they were saying. And los argentinos, they are a different class altogether. Different class. Like I had no idea what they were saying. We watched a movie, an Argentinian movie, and I was like, what are they saying? I needed to turn on subtitles. You know?
Yeah, I can understand it.
It's so weird. I mean, so definitely. So then you're saying that the Spanish in Bolivia is much more
Yeah,
understandable.
yeah, it's much more slow, especially in my city. Um,
Are you
we
from La Paz or Sucre?
I'm from Cochabamba. It's in the
Cochabamba.
middle of Bolivia.
Uh-huh.
In that place, well, in the place where I am,
Uh-huh.
we talk usually very slow, but sometimes we speak very fast, but it's rarely. So yeah, the best place to practice Spanish is here in Cochabamba, I think.
That's awesome. But my friend, this friend of mine, his name's Rodrigo. He said, Rodrigo, one of the first things he told me was, if you want to learn Spanish, come to Lima. Because maybe because he's biased, right? I mean, he's from Lima himself, but he did say something about like el castellano puro, like the very pure Castellano they speak in some areas of Lima. That is directly the same Castellano that they speak in Spain, for example.
Yeah, could be. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was surprised by that because I didn't know if that was true or not. You know.
Even people from Spain, uh, I don't like that Spanish. You know, it's like Britain English, Britain,
British English, right?
British English. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
very elite. It's like we are better than you guys.
yeah, it's I don't like even the accent is very weird for people from Latin America. It's
Yeah.
very weird to listen people from Spanish. Uh, we here use a lot of slang, and it's much common. Our Spanish it's more colloquial,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, more
It's more fun.
humble, I think.
Yeah, more humble, much more, down to earth, right? Really organic language, right? I mean, you use your surroundings to make idioms, to make phrases, and it's nice. I love that, But the vast majority of Spanish learning that happens in the United States now is Mexican Spanish. Like the super majority of Spanish. Like when I first started learning Spanish in high school, we learned Spain Spanish, right? So for example, we learned like el coche instead of like el carro. I think, how do you guys say car in
Yes,
Cochabamba?
caso.
El caso. Okay, so it's a little bit different, right? But we learned like la carretera, la autopista. I think autopista is Mexican and carretera is Spanish, like from Spain,
Yeah.
right? So different things like that. Like my vocabulary was different when I started speaking to people from Mexico. They said your Spanish is like weird. Like your Spanish is not the Mexican kind of colloquial Spanish, but that's where the majority of the focus is. Mexico is very close to the U.S. Lots of Mexicans here, so you know.
Yeah, even I can say that Mexican accent is acceptable for many Latin Americans.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Would you
I
say
prefer
the?
I prefer to watch movies in a Mexican accent
Hmm.
than Spanish accent.
What country would you say has the most pure accent that is, still Latin American, like pure but Latin American, not pure but Spain, for example.
I don't know. It's something subjective that
Hmm.
because every country has their accent, but I
Like
can say that.
Uruguay, how do they speak in Uruguay? Like Paraguay, like what are their accents?
Well, if you heard Argentinian people, Uruguay is the same accent.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, okay. And then same thing with Paraguay?
Paraguay, I think that they speak like Mexican, like
Really? That's
yeah.
nice. I like that. ¿Y los venezolanos
A
también?
ver, Venezolanos, they talk like Puerto Rican people.
Oh, okay, los boricuas.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
something funny to listen people from there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, but it would be my dream, like if I ever have a little bit of money and some free time to just start with like Mexico, go to Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, go all the way into like Panama, Colombia, and just see the entire South American landscape. I mean, besides Brazil, because I won't be able to speak the language, the other countries, just experience all the culture. I mean, like I think the most beautiful place in the world is probably Patagonia in like Argentina and
Argentina.
yeah, y también in Chile, I think in the south of Chile, Las Pampas. And it's just such a beautiful landscape. I mean, like it's unreal, that we have such an amazing amount of beauty and culture. And honestly, when it comes to Bolivia, I don't know anything about your country, man. Like, I don't know, like Cochabamba, I just looked on Wikipedia that it's in the center of the country. But in terms of, like beautiful parks, monuments. I don't know if you guys have anything like that.
Yeah, yeah, I can understand because we are, how can I say, we are enclosed by many countries, and that uh, mm, um, does didn't allow us to progress because we couldn't have access to the mar.
Yeah, to the sea, right? To the ocean.
To the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a huge shortcoming.
Mhm. It was durante la guerra de Pacífica, ¿no?
Yeah, sí, sí.
Sí.
Tuvimos muchos saqueos en nuestro país y um, teníamos incluso Potosí, que es una ciudad de Bolivia,
Sí, sí, sí.
era una potencia mundial antiguamente porque
Para La
tenía,
Plata, ¿no? ¿Fue un lugar para La Plata?
sí,
Sí.
exactamente, por el oro y por eso, pero no supimos manejar bien muchas cosas, entonces vinieron los españoles y lo saquearon todo, ¿no?
Sí, sí, esto fue todo el mundo hispano, creo que también en muchos otros lugares, cuando los españoles conquistaron la Sudamérica, empezaron con Lima, lo destruyeron, también en México, Tenochtitlán, la ciudad que tenía tanto oro,
Sí,
no hay nada allá por ahora. I mean, hoy en día se dice que España tenía, España llegó con una cultura, con un idioma diferente, pero destruyeron la cultura indígena de aquel parte del mundo, también de Sudamérica. Y después cuando los países de Sudamérica recibieron su independencia, creo que no estaban listos para sus economías. También la situación no tenían buena situación cuando empezaron sus historias como países independientes.
sí, sí, justamente, sí. De hecho, hay bastante información, hay buenos libros, ¿no? Acerca de todos estos problemas que pasaron.
Sí.
Por ejemplo, Raza de Bronce ahí se puede entender por qué Bolivia está como está, ¿no? Eh,
¿Raza de bronce se llama raza de bronce?
sí, Raza de Bronce, lo escribo. Sí,
¿Quién es el
exactamente.
autor? ¿Lo sabes?
No, no recuerdo bien, en
No hay problema.
colegio, sí.
Ajá, raza de bronce. ¿Y qué significa bronce en este título?
Bronce ah, es, es un metal, si no estoy.
Bueno, en inglés sí lo decimos como bronze. Aquí lo que escribí aquí,
Sí.
nosotros decimos bronze y pues en español se dice bronce,
Ok.
bronce, pero en inglés sí decimos bronze. Hay poca diferencia, pero raza de bronce, ¿no? Qué bueno. Al decirte la verdad, Wilson, no pude leer ningunos libros bolivianos en mi tiempo en la universidad, también en el colegio. Ah, enfocaba en la literatura española de España, pero no pude leer algo interesante sobre la historia de Sudamérica y no tenía ninguna oportunidad de conectarme con los bolivianos tampoco, porque no hay bolivianos por acá, no los conozco por acá.
Ah, escuché que en Virginia hay bastante boliviano.
Virginia, bueno, mi hermana vive cerca de Virginia, cerca de Washington, D.C., pero también los peruanos especialmente tienen una
Ah,
comunidad muy grande en Nueva Jersey, y también los mexicanos están por todas las partes de este país, pero los bolivianos, al decirte la verdad, eres la primera persona de Bolivia quien pude, con quien pude conocerme, al decirte
Sí,
la verdad. Sí,
sí, entiendo. Sí, no tenemos mucho acceso, digamos, para salir al exterior, pero bueno, sé de algunos que están en Virginia. eh, sí,
sí. Y también la situación en Bolivia no lo pensaba como algo súper grave en términos de salir del país. Sé que, por ejemplo, con el gobierno y con el presidente que tienen ustedes, es un poco más leftist. In English we say leftist. También es un amigo de Cuba, por ejemplo, también de Venezuela y esas cosas, pero no pensaba que la situación era tan grave para los ciudadanos, que no pueden salir tan fácilmente o no. No estaba seguro de esto, pero bueno.
no se puede salir. Bueno, bien, me refería a poder ingresar, digamos, a Estados Unidos o España, digamos. Eh, es un tanto complicado porque mucha gente, por ejemplo, a España, migró y, y bueno, se saturó, o sea, era ya demasiado, entonces ahí el gobierno de España prohibió, es un tanto complicado para bolivianos ir a España. Y
Ujú.
bueno, Estados Unidos es lo mismo que pasa con México es un tanto complicado tener documentos y todo eso,
Sí, sí,
¿no?
sí, es difícil, es difícil. And that's really where the difficulty is. I think in the United States, depending on where you are, if you speak Spanish, people think you are Mexican. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're from. You can say like, no, I'm from Bolivia. I'm from, Peru. I'm from Colombia. They will not care. I mean, of course, and the more educated people will know the difference, but to the common person, you're just all Mexican. You know,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
it's a difficult thing, because not everybody is pro immigration, and we see problems like that all the time. Like había una tienda, un restaurante en la ciudad de Filadelfia, y ellos dijeron, el dueño de aquel restaurante dijo que las personas quienes llegan aquí deben hablar en inglés, no pueden hablar en otro idioma, y por eso colgó un anuncio algo por un papel, escribió que English only. English only es nuestra regla en este restaurante. No es la ley, pero es lo que debes hacer si llegas a mi restaurante. Y después de casi 6 meses, creo que toda la ciudad hizo un boicot de aquel restaurante porque este dueño era tan racista, racist, ajá,
Racista.
racista, sí. En causa de esto, perdió su negocio. No pudo continuar con su restaurante porque toda la gente de Filadelfia le castigó, I mean, they punished him because of that, right? Because he
Yeah.
said English only, and a very difficult situation. I mean, there are crazy people like that, even in the most random places in the U.S. You know, so
Yeah.
it's unfortunate, Wilson. But anyway, man, it's so late there. It's late here, man. It was great talking to you. I was able to practice my Spanish with you a little bit.
No problem, Farhan.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Any big plans for the weekend? I actually don't have any weekend classes, so I'm not going to be seeing you until Monday night, probably.
Okay. Monday, you will have the class?
Yeah, I'll have class on Monday. Tomorrow and Sunday, I am going to be not doing any classes, unfortunately.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, well, have a great weekend, though, Wilson. I hope to see you sometime soon.
Okay, you have a nice weekend, Farhan,
Thank you.
and we'll see you on Monday.
Hasta pronto.
Nos vemos, Farhan.
Nos
Te
vemos.
cuidas. Chao,
Chao.
chao.
Tú también. Chao. Hey, Mark, how's it going, man?
Howdy.
Uh, Sorry about not realizing you were in the class. I didn't hear anything.
Okay. No problem.
I was just reading an article. Where are you from?
I'm from Brazil.
Brazil. Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
Lots of students from Brazil. What part?
Yeah. Yeah, I live in the south of Brazil. Porto Alegre.
Rio Grande do Sul.
Yes.
Nice.
Porto
Nice.
Alegre.
That's awesome, man. I know a little bit about that part of Brazil. Lots of nice universities, I think. I think some of the best
Yeah.
universities.
Yeah, definitely. Have you ever been here?
I've never been to Brazil, no, unfortunately, but it's not a bad idea. I think
Yeah.
I really want to visit. I think maybe if I get time in a few years, if I for the Olympics or maybe for the World Cup, I can come.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Grigori, how's it going?
Hello. Hello, guys. Very well. It's going
Good.
nice. We celebrate Yom Kippur today, and we have habits in this day. Our children play in our town. No cars in the streets, so children go to the streets and playing. It's very
Bec-
nice habit.
Yeah, is this the only day of the year that they can do this?
Yes, no cars in the streets, only ambulance or police,
Hmm.
not other. So it's good for children.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice. Did you have a good celebration with your family? The subject, right? What is doing the action?
Okay, it is your mom.
Yeah, so my mother makes breakfast, so that means the subject is my mother, right? Gregory, what's the object of that sentence?
Sorry, I would not concentrate.
No worries. So the subject is the person, place, thing that is doing the action. The object is what is receiving the action. It's not doing anything. It's just receiving the action in a sentence, right? So as an example, I said my mother makes breakfast, right? And Wilson correctly said that mother is the subject, or my mother is the subject. So what's the object of that sentence?
Breakfast.
Yeah, fantastic, right? So the breakfast is being made. It's not doing anything. The mother is actively doing the action, in this case, making the breakfast, right? So the mother is the subject and breakfast is the object, right? And that is very important to understand. Subject does the action, the object receives the action. So in an active voice, right, this is the setting that we have in the active voice, right? And the person doing the action, the subject, is at the beginning of the sentence, let's say, and the object is at the end of the sentence. Very easy to understand, right? Give me another example of the active voice. Let's go with Mark. Give me an example of an active voice sentence.
Okay. I teach Portuguese uh, every day.
Fantastic. What is the subject of that sentence, Mark?
I.
And what is the object of that sentence?
Portuguese.
Fantastic, fantastic, right? So this is the active voice, right? Mark is talking about himself. I teach Portuguese, right? So what happens in passive voice? In passive voice, the object is the subject of the sentence, okay? And it's a little difficult to understand because I just said at the beginning, the subject does the action, the object receives the action, right? So now, in this case, we have the object is doing the action, okay? The object is doing the action, so the object is technically now the subject of the sentence, right? We will have to use examples to make this a little bit clear. But if you think of an active sentence, the best way to think of the passive version, in my mind, is to flip the subject and the object order. Okay?
Yeah.
So, for example, my mother makes breakfast. You can say
Breakfast is made by my mother.
fantastic. Breakfast is made by my mother, right? And if you don't want to say by my mother, you can just say breakfast is made.
Yeah.
Or breakfast was made, right? So the breakfast, which used to be the object, is now the subject of the sentence, right?
Yeah.
So that is where the difference in passive and active voice is. And what's interesting is passive voice is not recommended in many situations. For example, when I was a child and I used to write papers, sometimes, in like second or third grade, I wrote, my mother eats, my mother loves to eat, chocolate, whatever, candy with me. And instead of writing that, I would say, the candy is eaten, or the candy is whatever, right? Passive voice is not recommended in many situations, and it's, the other,
Oh.
I tell everybody from Brazil, so I'll tell you also, Mark. My introduction to your country was through movies, so like Tropa de Elite, Tropa de Elite 2.
City of God.
Yeah, City of God, right? So all of these movies, Bus 174, I think was another one, something like that. They're all about the favelas and the crime and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, such great movies, like action-packed, jam-packed movies, like very, very exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So you understand Portuguese or not?
A little bit, very little. I mean, I speak
By the way,
Spanish.
okay.
I speak Spanish, but Portuguese, I mean, very, very basic.
Okay. By the way, I'm a teacher. I teach Portuguese in Brazil.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You can
What
teach
you
me
teach,
some
Mark?
Portuguese.
Yeah, of course I can.
Okay. Do you teach Portuguese
Yeah, I do.
in the school?
Yeah, high school.
High school.
Yeah. By the way, I'm teaching a teacher from Colimbo. She's coming to Brazil next March, and she's trying her Portuguese. She's been having a hard time, definitely, with our nasal sounds. That is not very common for you guys in America, but that's funny. That's awesome.
Yeah, Portuguese, the pronunciation is very difficult, Mark.
Yeah, it is.
For a lot of people, Spanish is not like that. I think for people who don't speak Portuguese, I think if you speak Spanish, it's not too bad. But still, Spanish is easier than.
Yeah, but I prefer my students do not speak Spanish because it's too similar to Portuguese, And so when you try in Portuguese sounds, when your brain doesn't get that sound, you go back to your Spanish background. It's a hard work for me. You don't do that to sound like a Spanish.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that. If I was in your class, I think I would have the same problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wilson, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, Farhan. Fine, thank you. How about you?
Good, good, good. Did you have a good day today? Anything interesting?
No, just it is Friday, and that's cool.
Absolutely. God bless Fridays.
Yeah.
Best day of the week. All right, guys. So we'll get started, actually. It's about 11 minutes past the hour. So today's class, we are going to be focusing on the passive voice, actually, right? So when we talk about the passive voice in English, before we begin the discussion, we should kind of talk about what is the difference between passive voice and active voice, right? So normally when we talk in English, we use the active voice. And the active voice is where the subject is the subject of the sentence is also the person that is doing the action, right? Or the thing that is doing the action. So, for example, in an active voice setting, you would say, every morning my mother makes breakfast, right? So the subject is the mother, and she is also the thing that is doing the action. She is making breakfast, right? So before we talk about active versus passive, we have to understand the subject and the object. Okay? So the subject is the person, place, or thing, the noun, that is doing the action. And the object is receiving the action, right? So in the case of my mother makes dinner or my mother makes breakfast, what is the subject of that sentence, Wilson?
The breakfast.
It's not celebration. It's trauer. It's opposite of celebration. It's they afraid of God. Go to pray and that's all. Not eating, not drinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I meant to say that did you have a good Yom Kippur, I guess? Was it I guess I can't really say good either, right? Because it's supposed to be a day of, reflection, repentance. But no, I think it was normal, right? It was a good Yom Kippur from what you're saying.
I eating and drinking. I'm not not keep
Fast.
not keep tradition.
Uh-huh.
I'm not religious man.
Oh, that's fine. But yeah, so if you did eat and drink, then that means that you did not fast, right? Because
yes,
fasting, yeah, fasting is when you don't eat or drink. So fasting, no food, no water. So I was fasting, for example, or I was sometimes maybe the doctor will tell you before you come to the surgery, you must fast for 1 day. So no food, no water. That way, it's your body is at a different. That way, your body is ready. Because if you have food in your stomach, maybe they can't do surgery. If you recently drank water, they probably can't do surgery. So, yeah. We're gonna wait a couple more minutes, guys. I know it's a little bit early now. Have you guys met before, Mark and Gregory? Have you guys met?
Well, I think so. I'm not sure. Anyway, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I know Mark from Brazil. I know Mark a lot of participate on classes. I see him.
Yeah, probably we have met a lot of students. Some of them are more regular than others.
Have you? I think this is the first time you're in my class, Mark.
Yeah, very first time.
Nice, welcome, welcome. I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
Sure. So yeah, just to introduce myself, Mark, probably the other students that will join will already know me, but my name is Farhan. I live in the U.S., in Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a smaller, relatively rural state in the north part of the country. So the Midwest, we call it the north central part of the country.
Okay.
And we have a lot of cows here, a lot of cheese, a lot of milk, a lot of dairy. Yeah, we probably have we probably have more cows than people, honestly, in this state.
Wow.
Yeah, so very, very calm place. About 2.5 hours from Chicago.
Okay.
So if you know where Chicago is, it's 2.5 hours north of there. So
cool.
Yeah, it's nice. There are one of my friends is actually Brazilian. Her husband or her fiance is from New Zealand, and she is from Brazil. She was born in Brazil, came to the U.S. when she was, I think, 3 years old, but she speaks Portuguese, and it's used in poetry, it's used in songs, it's used in a lot of different kinds of writing, but not in normal speech, which is why it's difficult to understand a little bit, right? So how could we change the sentence This is the sentence that I'll give you guys in active voice. I'll start with Gregory, actually. So Gregory, let's say this is the sentence that I'm giving you in active voice. I want you to make it in passive voice, okay? Let's see. So this active voice sentence is, the lady cleaned her house.
The house was cleaned by a lady.
Fantastic. The house was cleaned by the lady. So in the first example, the lady cleaned the house. The house was the object. In passive voice, that house, which was the object, is now the subject. The house was cleaned by the lady. Right? Fantastic. So I think you guys, I think we are getting to that point where we understand this. Do we have any questions about the creation of the active voice versus the creation of the passive voice?
No.
But I have to switch tenses, and then if the active sentence is in the present, I have to put it in the past.
You don't necessarily have to. No, not at all, actually. So in this example, I guess I was doing that just out of habit. But if you, for example, say my mother makes breakfast, breakfast is made by my mother.
Okay.
You can keep it present tense.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah. So the verb doesn't have any doesn't need to be in a different tense. It can be in the same tense. So this is the difference between active and passive tense, right? Before we go on, actually, let me say hi to our newcomer. Hey, Soso, how's it going?
Hi guys,
Soso, where are you from?
I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Fantastic. I was born in Saudi Arabia.
Really?
Yeah,
Which city?
I was born in Najran,
Ah.
in the south. Yeah. Lots of Saudis on Colingo. Lots of Brazilians and lots of Saudis.
Your Arabic is very good.
Yeah, it's. I mean, there are so many. Like,
How many years?
How
long have you been living there in the U.S.?
Oh, me? So I was born in Saudi Arabia, and I came to the U.S. when I was 3.
Yeah.
So I'm 24 now, so 21 years.
Yeah. You have a very clear speech.
Yeah, I think because I grew up here, I think that's the main reason. Because my parents, for example, they learned English just like me. They went through the university system in Bangladesh. They're from Bangladesh. My parents are from Bangladesh. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I live in America. I'm all confused, but they also but they have an accent when they speak because they didn't grow up here, I guess.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So nice to meet you. Welcome to class. We were just talking about the passive versus the active voice. And if we, for example, are talking about the passive voice, actually, first tell me, So, do you know what the active voice is? I'm going to put you on the spot because you came late.
I'm not the only one who's late.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking. So,
Okay.
what is the active voice? Do you have any idea about that?
I think it's very straight. Subject, verb, and object. It's very simple.
Yeah, give me an example.
Okay. I attended